can put a banner up. Finally.
We're going to talk about the recent series premiere of WWE Raw on Netflix. This has been the long-awaited debut of the long-running professional wrestling franchise, WWE Raw, which has been on the air for more than 30 years now, making its debut on the biggest streaming platform in the world. We talked about this news when it broke nearly a year ago. It might have actually been a year ago at this point. It shocked the wrestling world. This was a huge deal. WWE and Netflix partnering up with one another for a 10-year, $5 billion deal, the biggest deal that WWE has ever been a part of. And for the next 10 years, with the opt-out option, I think after the fifth year, Netflix will be the exclusive home of Monday Night Raw in the United States, but also internationally. Netflix is getting everything. They're getting the PLEs, they're getting NXT, they're getting SmackDown. So if you are in an international country, Netflix is your one-stop shop for WWE everything for the next 5 years at least. But this is a huge, huge, huge transitional period for the WWE. This is the biggest stage that they've ever been on up until this point, and they obviously had to treat it as such. And this premiere episode is a big deal, not only for just professional wrestling fans, but perhaps lapsed fans of professional wrestling who used to watch that maybe have not watched in a few years, or brand new fans who have yet to discover the product because you have this big global platform in Netflix. Before we dive into the show and talk about, everything that happened there and, sort of give our reactions to what we saw, I mean, just talk about your feelings about this deal. I know we expressed it when the news initially came out a year ago, but now with a year of new WWE product under the belt, we're firmly in the Triple H era now. And all the momentum that they've gained heading into this premiere on Netflix. I mean, what are your thoughts just about this deal and how significant it is for the WWE moving forward?
Man, such a huge, crazy, wild, I can't believe we're here kind of deal. It's so interesting to think about that. Raw is one of the longest longest running television broadcasts of all time, which is crazy. And to say that we're going from, I think cable television, Raw was normally on USA Network, to then move on to Netflix it's going to take me a while, not to necessarily get used to, but to still wrap my head around, like, wow, we're really doing this thing. Like, we're really about to watch Raw on Netflix. Usually I'm used to turning on like YouTube TV or something to end up watching Raw, it used to be on, you could watch Hulu the next day, but now it's just like, turn on Netflix. What? What am I supposed to do to watch wrestling? Turn on Netflix?
It's never been this easy.
It's never been this easy ever. It's always been kind of a claw fest. I even think about when WWE had its own thing. You had to go to the WWE website to even watch a lot of the pay-per-views and some of the previous broadcasts and things like that. So it's a crazy deal. And the thing that they're trying to get people to understand is like, everybody around the world can now watch this thing. Netflix is one of the most the highest subscriber worldwide audience that exists out there. And so it's crazy to know, like, usually when I watch Raw and I watch wrestling, I'm like, oh, all the Americans are watching, until we go to, again, one of these more recent pay-per-views, right? We're in Saudi Arabia, we're in Germany somewhere. I'm like, okay. But now when watching Raw, I'm going to be like, no, the whole world is probably watching this thing, or the whole world is probably about to watch this thing. It's more accessible than ever. And it's also interesting because that's a lot of people ran into wrestling kind of in the way that they're going to run into it on Netflix too. Like, a lot of people would just be flipping channels and you run into like, oh, what's that thing? People are wrestling. What is this? What's going on here? And I think in a lot of ways it's genius, because it's going to be two things are going to happen. The WWE fans are going to be like, well, I got to go to Netflix to watch Raw. And then it's going to be over. And then they're going to click on something else on Netflix, or vice versa. A lot of people are just going to be on Netflix and be like, huh, you know what? I've never watched wrestling before. I've seen all these celebrities on social media that was on Raw on Monday. Let me click on this thing. And now they have a new fan. It's such an interesting thing to me that's happening here. It's part of it's experimental, part of it's like, no, that makes a ton of sense. That's why that's going to work. So it's really interesting. I love the energy coming into this deal with Triple H helming this thing. It just all feels different and new, and I didn't know how to feel about it before, just because I've always had mixed feelings about Netflix in general. But this thing right here, this machine that is WWE Raw on Netflix, I'm here for it, and I think I'm ready to have fun with what they're about to give us.
Yeah, it's a massive deal for sure. Obviously, as a diehard, lifelong professional wrestling fan, to see them get this type of exposure and to be on the stage, it's hugely gratifying because for a long time, not for all time, but for a long time, professional wrestling has mostly been a niche thing. It's been
Yeah.
for a very small subset of culture. It hasn't been the most mainstream thing ever, with a few exceptions. Obviously, the 80s boom, the Attitude Era. Now we're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing sort of a new era these days. But often in between, most people sort of drop off. But the real fans stick around. And historically, we've seen, especially with the product of WWE, they've changed networks a lot. That's just a part of TV rights and
Yeah.
TV deals, and they've had to move a lot. And historically, fans follow. Fans will find where the product is, no matter where it's at. I remember back in the day, I did not have UPN at home, and I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
watch SmackDown. Always
Yep.
had Raw, always had USA or TNN when it was on TNN and
Yeah.
Spike
Or
TV for that
Spike.
era.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But UPN wasn't available until like 2003, and then finally I had access to SmackDown, and like a whole new world opened up. Anyway, I say all that to say that fans will find the product and they're diehard. But now, as you mentioned, to be on Netflix, the largest streaming platform in the world, the most eyeballs possible, a truly global company. This is the most exposure that they've ever had, and now we're seeing once again WWE continue to be on the cutting edge of technology and television and streaming. Like they've always historically been that, even though they don't always get that credit. But you can go back to the 80s with closed circuit television and them sort of pioneering that, and then pay-per-view alongside boxing being very much an important purveyor of pay-per-view all the way until the WWE network. That was one of like the first standalone streaming services outside of Netflix. Like we didn't
Yeah.
have Disney Plus and
Mm-hmm.
Peacock and Paramount. Like the WWE network did its own streaming service well before any of those other things came along, until finally over the past few years they decided, you know what, we'll have better success and we'll even reach more people if we just put all of our stuff over on Peacock. And that's been working out really well for them for the past few years, to now this Netflix deal. There is no other sports organization, with the exception of NFL occasionally and
Mm-hmm.
NBA on Prime Video, that has dove headfirst into a deal like this. Again, Prime Video has done a lot lately, but Netflix hasn't really tapped into this yet on a regular recurring basis. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, we're off the heels of the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, huge,
Yep.
successful, live event for them. We're also off of the heels of the Christmas Day football games, the
Mm-hmm.
Beyonce Bowl, big success for them. But again, as I mentioned, this is the first time on a recurring basis Netflix is delivering live content weekly. No,
Every Monday.
no interruptions, full stop. If you don't
Yep.
know, wrestling doesn't stop. Like it's year
Yeah.
round. There is no off
Mm-hmm.
season. So this is also going to be an important litmus test, I think, for other sports organizations, other live event organizations, to look at this to see the sustainability of this type of model on a streaming platform, because it just hasn't really been done to this scale in this degree before. So I'm just glad that WWE is in this position. Now this took place, this past Monday, Los Angeles, at the brand new Intuit Dome, where the Clippers are now playing. And it was a huge production. I mean, they rolled out the red carpet in pretty much every facet. I want to hear your thoughts on just like that element of it, because you just knew that they had to go bigger and better for this episode, because this is going to be either the first time that a lot of people see it, or again, as
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned, like returning fans who have not watched in a while coming back to the product. So from a production standpoint, from a just putting together a show, they had to kind of put their best foot forward and treat this almost like it was a WrestleMania or a
Yep.
premium live event. So what were your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on just like the look and the presentation and the feel and just the overall nature of what this ultimately entailed when it ultimately landed on Netflix on Monday?
No, you said it. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is like they put this past Raw was WrestleMania on a Monday. That's what it was. I was like, what is happening and going on in this production? But it does make sense. You want to have good first impressions across the board. Again, you want to tell the new fans, look, y'all, this is a new era. You have to change things for that. Not only that, you're working with a different completely broadcast team. It's not USA, it's not Fox, it's not any of those people anymore. Netflix is trying to establish its own thing with this partnership in Raw. So it has to look certain ways, and a lot of that stuff was really cool, I think, to figure out, like, wow, are they going to be doing some of this stuff every week? There was some camera work I actually really enjoyed a little bit in here, and they were pulling out all the stops, and I'm like, wow, is it really going to be like this every week? And I think over time, I think only time will tell. Like you said, the first one was the first one. Like, you gotta go big or go home. But I'm like, that could be interesting if they do decide to go with these small production things, upping the cameras, seeing those red lights in the seats that made it feel very a Netflixy kind of night thing. That was interesting. I was like, oh, what are these lights that are kind of by? It looks different. I'm used to seeing the crowd, I think, behind, and I don't know if I like that yet. I think I usually like seeing the crowd, like pointing behind people, like, y'all see that crazy sign back there? So I think they might have to calm down on some of those seat lights a little bit. But I like that they were trying things to make it feel like there was a new era that's being ushered into wrestling. And so yeah, man, I was happy to see them pull out all the stops. I love feeling like this was like a big deal, because it was. And I think the card reflected that. I think the production value reflected that. And I think they knew that this was the production that they had to get right. You had to get WWE right. Like, Netflix, y'all was tearing up some other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Beyonce had to joke about the buffering issues and things like that. They were like, look, things have to go good on this first day. And I think they did pretty well across the board. I love the look of the Intuit Dome. I love seeing the red carpet being laid out. I love seeing stars that are normally on SmackDown show up on the red carpet and things like that. I think they did a pretty good job with this first night.
This was everything looks like $1 million. And the Intuit Dome was the perfect debut venue for this episode. It's a state-of-the-art facility, brand new. You talked about those lights. Those lights are installed in the seats of the Intuit Dome. That's a regular thing. I also heard that the Intuit Dome, haven't been there yet, plan to go, soon enough, but I heard that every seat in the Intuit Dome has charger capabilities. You just have to bring your own USB port, but every single seat in that building has charger capabilities, which is,
that's crazy.
I don't even know how that's possible. That's a lot of juice and a lot of power that's being used. But it's an incredible facility. That circular LED screen that hangs inside of the arena, it's massive. It looks gorgeous and beautiful. So they just took full advantage. I mean, WWE really does have one of the best production teams in the world. I think easily. I look at other things. I see a lot of live events. I've been to other, productions and things of that nature. Even compared to sports, I think that they stand above a lot of other organizations, and they really do it better than almost anybody else. And so that was clearly the case here. Once again, I loved everything, from a production standpoint. It all looked magnificent. It lived up to what you would expect out of this organization, to make it feel large and epic and to feel like a big deal, as big as it could possibly feel. And I think that they absolutely hit a home run from that perspective. Now let's talk about the night really quickly. I really just want to focus on kind of the big headline. The show starts off, there's a big introduction about the history of professional wrestling. Triple H kicks off the show. And then after that, we see The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson come. And he essentially kind of kicks off the night and welcomes people to the show. But I think for wrestling fans, we probably were expecting a different version of Dwayne Johnson. I think we were expecting the final boss, because the last time that we saw him on camera in character, it was as the final boss. This was not the final boss. This was just merely Dwayne Johnson, company ambassador, director of the board for TKO. So he has a position of power. He just bought a lot of new stock in the company lately. Essentially coming out, welcoming everybody. He's dapping up his executives, Mark Shapiro and Ari Emanuel. He's shouting out, Ted Sarandos and Bella Bajaria, all the people that work at Netflix. He's just running through and, sort of, being a company man at this point. Proceeds to give a shout out to Cody Rhodes. He basically introduces the tribal combat match that opens up with Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. We see him once again. He comes back out. He gives Roman the Ula Fala. And it definitely it was interesting. Again, for wrestling fans, it definitely, I think, for wrestling fans who have been watching the product, it felt a certain type of way. And then maybe for new fans who are coming into it, who might not know what's really going on, I don't know how they're reading it, nor do I really care, but that is what it is. But what were your thoughts on just like that whole thing? Because that's been the big talk, just like the involvement of him, because there have been a lot of questions about when was he going to come back? and what degree was he going to come back? Because the last time that we saw him technically
Yeah.
was Bad Blood, but he did wrestle last year at WrestleMania. He competed
did.
in a match, and so a lot of questions surrounding that with the pending stories. What were your thoughts on just how that all played out?
Yeah, it was really interesting to see. Of course, I was happy to see The Rock, and he announced that he was going to be at Raw. We all knew he was going to show up, but part of me thought he was going to show up at the end of the match between Solo and Roman in final boss form. Like, that's how I thought he was going to pull up to this thing and kind of be involved in that story. But instead, like you said, he kind of shows up as the businessman, and I'm like, huh, okay, does this mean you're not? Is this story over for you? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, are you out of the picture from here on out? Is the final boss done and the final boss over? Or does it mean something else now? Or when you come out, are you going to be Triple H 2.0? You know what I mean? Like, are you going to just come out here and talk and say hello, executives, and then walk out of the ring? I honestly didn't know how to feel, and part of me, again, I thought I was going to be looking for the wrestler final boss Rock, but then when it was the moment where he talked to Cody. He was like, I got to give props to the one person that's been running this company that's been having this company on his back for a year, Cody Rhodes. I said, wait a second. When you left, you said, I'll be back for you. Like, I thought he was going to come out here with talking about Mama Rhodes all up and down this thing, cussing up a storm as he does. But that's not the Rock we got. And so, yeah, man, I still don't know how to feel about it because, of course, there's always time. It could just be, hey, this is the first Netflix episode. Let's act like none of that didn't happen. I'm just going to be Executive Rock today. Maybe I'll come back later. But it didn't really feel like that. It kind of felt like I'm not going to be wrestling anytime soon kind of feel that I was getting. I'm going to be the businessman kind of feel. So I'm not sure 100%. I do have to say what was really funny. I have to call this out before I forget. He ended the night with, like, he was walking to his car with tequila and then you see him drive off. I'm like, so he's just drinking and driving and we're not going to talk about it. Okay. I had to say, but I was like, wait, this is kind of crazy. But yeah, man, I couldn't really place it, but it definitely was a weird feeling.
Drinking and driving. Travis Scott walked out with a blunt.
Travis Scott was on one.
There's a lot of delinquent behavior.
This
is not your mother's WWE. I'll say that. Look, I know how I feel about the whole thing. I didn't like it. As of now, I did not like that shit. It left me, to be honest, like after it all happened and it all went down, it took a lot of energy out of me. It really deflated me for the rest of the night. I'm not going to kid you. Like, it was hard for me to get into the rest of the show because I was just so confused. Like, literally, the last time we saw you, literally, at Bad Blood, you walked out, didn't say a word, but gave a throat slash gesture towards either Cody Rhodes or Roman Reigns. One of those two. Mm-hmm. And in both instances in which you came across these two people, you were friendly. There was no smoke. There was nothing to be said. And these are two very, very important stories. And to be honest, after everything that we saw last year, all the chaos leading up to WrestleMania 40, it was a crazy, crazy road, but it was worth it because we got some incredible, incredible story stuff out of that. Him becoming the final boss was the best opportunity and the best thing that they could have done. Him igniting this feud with Cody Rhodes turned out to be, at least for me, more interesting than what he was doing with Roman Reigns. Like, I wanted to see him versus Cody more than him versus Roman at this point because they had a genuine story between those two. And then before Bad Blood, before Cody wins the title, I mean, almost a year ago, The Rock fucking beat him to a bloody pulp in a parking lot.
It was bad.
Beat his ass. Like, beat this man to a bloody pulp. Like, busted him open and everything. And fast forward a year later, and you're shouting him out and patting him on the head and drinking tequila in the back with him and toasting him and saying, I'm proud of you. You're carrying the company. You're a real company guy. What the fuck is this? Like, what happened? What conversation happened on the interim that we were not privy to? All that I know is that Cody went to the Moana 2 premiere. But I'm like, you know what? That's fair. That's not WWE TV. It's not story. They didn't say anything. They weren't hugged up with each other. He was just at the premiere. But it's jarring. It's really jarring, I think, for fans who watch the product. And I've heard the argument from other people where it's like, oh, maybe this episode, again, because they're really catering to the people, who might not be familiar with the story, who might not watch. Like, I get that. I understand that. Like, you can do that. But at the same time, like, your most compelling stuff is your stories. Like, that's the stuff that's going to draw people in. And why not lean into that, especially considering that it was pretty much well received by everybody? Like, nobody was complaining about how everything played out at the end of WrestleMania 40 leading into this year. And people
Nope.
were excited to see, like, what's going to happen with Cody and Rock, what's going to happen with Cody and Roman. Like, people want to know that stuff. And a new fan who comes in, if you see something juicy, if you see The Rock attack his cousin on TV out of nowhere, you're going to be like, yo, what the fuck's going on? What's that about?
Perfect.
I want to keep tuning in. I want to keep watching.
Yep.
That's the stuff that draws people in. It's the drama. It's the intrigue, not the, hey, guys, welcome to Netflix. You know, we're going to shepherd you in and just teach you about professional wrestling. So that stuff just didn't really jive with me. And I thought with the Roman stuff, I thought that was the perfect opportunity. Like, maybe, just maybe, he's going to backstab this dude. Maybe he's going to fucking clothesline him out of nowhere.
Bottom that boy.
I thought it was about to happen. And then nothing happened. Nothing happened. And so I walked out of that thinking like, well, The Rock's now working WrestleMania, because why else would you seemingly tie up those stories in that way and put a bow on them? That's not to say that they can never revisit them, but I don't think you do something like that mere months outside of WrestleMania with the intention on picking it up unless they have a huge fucking swerve ahead of us, which I guess technically is possible, but I don't know. That might have been their soft way of telling us, like, yeah, don't expect Rock to be in Vegas.
Exactly.
Do you think that was the case, that they just might have been signaling to us like, hey, guys, we know you've been asking. We know you've been wondering. We're going to kind of, you know, tell you without telling you that he's likely not going to be wrestling this year because apparently he has fucking reshoots for Moana.
No, man, I that's what it felt like to me. It really felt like, yeah, I don't know if I'm wrestling this year, guys. That's almost the energy that I got, and part of me almost feels like some of the energy that would have went into Rock is slowly getting poured into John Cena a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what's going on here with The Rock anymore. Like, it just doesn't feel like he's about to wrestle, because like you said, he came out as a face all of a sudden. You're like, what is this? Like, he was high-fiving people and kissing babies, gave his kids the belt, and I'm like, this is not the final boss. You know how I feel about The Rock, man. I was ready for the final boss to pull up. I thought the asshole final boss was gonna come in, and I was trying to figure, again, even when he brought up like Mama Rose, I was like, that's a little jokey joke. That's not the, you know what I'm saying? That's not a real threat to anything. And I'm hoping for a swerve, you know, but I don't feel it. I don't feel like that's the energy that I'm getting, because now was the time, the top of the year. This is the road to WrestleMania, Royal Rumble around the corner. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that this was the perfect time to start to get a lot of that stuff started, especially with Solo and Roman kind of quote unquote squashing things. I don't know. Maybe there is something there. Maybe we're surprised and next Monday The Rock shows up again and people start talking, but I don't get that energy, and I don't get that feel, and it's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like that. That feels like that maybe old WWE would do some real convoluted shit like that, but that doesn't feel like what new WWE would do. What the Triple H era does prove is that they have been very good about paying stuff off, like long-term investment stories that have been drawn out. They've been very good about that. But to misdirect us in that way, if that was the intention, I don't know if that's what they're going for. It could be really crazy if effectively pulled off. I mean, Cody did have those comments a few months ago saying like, yeah, you guys really have no idea like what the main event's going to be. Like, it's going to be like the most unpredictable thing. You don't see it coming. So like,
that's possible.
That's lingering. It is possible, but it's hard to believe, especially, you know, Rock got out on NXT last night and he was like, oh, you know, just enjoy The Rock's taking you on. I'm always thinking 20 steps ahead, you know, almost justifying what he did. And I'm just I'm like, sir, you're really just kind of bullshitting now, if you ask me, you know. And I in this mode, I do love The Rock, and I love what he did last year, and I was really excited too. I was really looking forward to it, but it was just so confusing. It's unlike, you know, a lot of stuff that we typically see, because we've been conditioned to think a certain type of way. We've been conditioned to speculate and to ask these questions and to expect that things are going to happen, especially, as you said, this is now the road to WrestleMania. And Triple H even said that. He's like, it's really starting here. And I didn't get that feeling watching the show. You brought up John Cena. We should talk about him. How do you feel about John Cena's last year? This is the farewell tour. He's retiring after this year. He declared for the Royal Rumble officially, so he will be competing there. What are your thoughts on just like the outlook for him for the rest of the year? 17th world title, is that possible? Is that in the cards that he breaks the record? I know he's not technically a Grand Slam champion. That's still like lingering out there. Any
Yeah.
desire for like a potential feud, like story that you want to see out of him? What do you think about John Cena's next and final year in the business?
I don't know. Part of me is just rolling with the punches with John Cena. It is hard for me to see him taking any kind of belt here in this mode, especially if you tell us you're retiring. Why are we gonna give you the belt if you're gonna retire? I don't know. It just doesn't really make any sense to me. But I guess they could fast track some things, make it happen, and then make it unhappen. You know what I mean? But I really don't know with John Cena, man. I guess I kind of just want to see him come face to face with a couple. I'm almost more excited about some of the things that he's going to do in promo, like some of the people he's going to see on these shows and like come to face with, than I am see him like really wrestle. To be honest, even though of course I want to see him wrestle, but it's just like I want to see the fun stuff that he does to kind of tie a bow on this thing. But I want it to be neat, I don't know, but I don't even know 100% what that looks like for me. We'll just have to see, because everything is so different in this era. I know what I don't want to see. I don't want to see John Cena and Austin Theory. Is what I don't want to see. Yeah, don't give me that. But I hope whatever they do decide, and I hope whatever they do come to terms with, I have a feeling they're gonna send them off pretty well, because I think Triple H is good at that, and I think John Cena knows what he wants as well. I thought the Royal Rumble stuff was interesting. Like if someone, John Cena kind of old now, but if he's like an early entrance and he lasts like the whole Rumble, he only got to win. I'm like, hell yeah, you did that thing. I'll be pretty happy, with something like that. So yeah, man, we'll just have to see. But I'm still excited to spend some time with him, to be honest, in this kind of like new WWE era, and see him get some stuff done. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think he confirmed that he has 36 dates, which it's a lot. He'll be around quite often to do just like one final loop of all these major cities that he's performed in for 20 plus years at this point. I'm happy for him. He deserves it. He deserves whatever they decide to do for him. He's obviously like one of the greatest that have come through. The promo itself was it went a little bit long, but I like where it landed. With the whole Royal Rumble buildup. Obviously, like I think a lot of us expected him to be in that. And now the rumored match is that he's gonna possibly be the one to fight Cody at WrestleMania.
Cody, yeah.
Since it looks like The Rock and Cody might not be on the cards or on the table at this point, which is a match that I would be okay with. Like I'm fine with that. Like those are two of the biggest faces in recent memory for WWE.
Yeah.
Why not have that match? I don't think Cena wins the Rumble. I think that's probably a little too clean and too easy. He probably would win like Elimination Chamber and get like a title shot or something like that. In terms of breaking the record, getting 17, I kind of think that will happen, because
you think so? Okay.
Yeah, because why get him to 16 if you don't intend to break the record?
If you don't intend to break the record,
like why even get him that close?
Agree with that.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be a long title run, obviously, but I could see him getting it for a few months, holding on to it, and then ultimately giving it up. And having a program with somebody else, and I'd be okay with it. Like, why not? It's fine. Every champion doesn't need to hold the belt for a fucking year plus. Like, it's fine.
Exactly.
So I would be okay with it. Do you have any early predictions for Royal Rumble winners at this point? Because it's kind of open. I mean, Cena's out there.
Hella open.
Roman's likely going to declare. CM Punk has kind of made his case after the match with Seth Rollins. Probably a bunch of other people I'm forgetting, and I'm thinking about the men specifically at this point. But any early thoughts on who might walk away as the winner of the Royal Rumble in a couple of weeks?
It is hard to say. I do feel like all those people are going to be in it, and I have a feeling they're going to carry over a lot of those storylines. Like CM Punk and Seth Rollins will probably eliminate each other. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's going to happen, and it's really hard to say though. I think it would be cool, and I know we were just talking about The Rock, but it would be cool if The Rock was randomly involved somehow. I just don't know how, but it would be cool to see Rock and Cena in the ring together for a second. Again, Royal Rumble is really good at just having those split second moments of like, oh yeah, let's have this cool face off little thing that we might not get ever again. So I think I'm excited to see some of that stuff. But man, like Royal Rumble's up in the air for both parties, men and women. I don't know what's going on, and I think that's what's going to make these next couple weeks more interesting. We are less than a month away from Royal Rumble, and usually I have like this person's going to do this and this person's going to do that. But with Tiffany just got the thing, and with just got the belt, and with Rhea just got her belt, and on the women's side, and then the men's side, Gunther, who's going to, it just I really don't know, and I think it's up for grabs. I will say, LA Knight doesn't have anything for a reason. That's what I would say. I don't know what he's going to do, but they took the belt off of him for a reason. So I'm like, all right, maybe he does something. I'm not sure, but I think it's going to make that next month very, very interesting. And yeah, who knows, man? We'll see. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Jade will show up now at Royal Rumble 2 on the women's side. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't.
Yeah, if she's cleared, I know she's been injured, but hopefully she's like getting better and healed. The women do have a lot of potential returns at this point. Charlotte, Becky is on the table.
Becky is on the table.
I think Becky was supposed to be at Raw, but they had to, rewrite things.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so okay. I think she'll probably just pop up at the Rumble if I'm assuming. So, so the women it's kind of up in the air just because of that element, the fact that like there's going to be a lot of returns and kind of throw that into shambles. And then the men, it's hard to call because you can go in a lot of different directions. I would say an early pick for me is probably CM Punk. That's my early pick at this point because like he's never won a Royal Rumble before, so that's my early pick right now. But as things shape up for the next few weeks, we'll see. Because it's going to be interesting, like him and Cena and likely Roman, and as you said, Seth. Like that's a whole thing. Those are kind of the big ones. The Rock, I don't know. I've seen people, sort of fan speculate. Because he's the director of the board, he can make it himself like an illegal 31st entrant. There's only 30 people. Hella funny. Only 30 people in the Rumble, but then all of a sudden the fucking countdown clock starts, and it's like, wait, we've had the 30. Who's 31? And then the Rock comes out and. It's kind of funny. It would be funny. It would actually be pretty creative.
Yeah, I like that.
If they can swerve us in that way, I'll be here for it. But again, I
doubt it. I doubt it.
Feels like he's probably not wrestling this year. We should talk about Hulk Hogan.
Oh man,
they trotted out Hulk Hogan during this episode because they've established a new partnership with him and his beer company. I think it's called Real American Beer, whatever the fuck. Who cares? But he walked out there, barely walked out there, and gave his typical Hulk Hogan shtick, and LA was not fucking having it. They had no energy for Hulk Hogan. Oh my God. Booed out of the building. It was
I've never seen that.
Unbelievable. Oh my God.
It was so bad.
It was bloody. It was brutal. I've never, ever, ever seen anything like that, especially for Hulk Hogan. He's been booed in other places, but not to this degree. And not, obviously out of character. Like, of course, he's been booed this way when he was a heel in WCW. But like, just promoting something and just being, brought out as a legacy act, like genuine heat, genuine boos from the people. What'd you think? What was going through your mind when you saw this? Because there's obviously a lot of fuel behind probably why. What do you attribute it to, and what were your thoughts as it unfolded?
I loved it. I loved it because there's too far and in between where the public is just too nice to people who are just historically assholes, right? Like it was Drake was like that for a long time until Kendrick came along. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's like, oh my God, Drake. And then Kendrick, now everybody's like, boo. And it feels good for people, I think, to be honest with their feelings outright. And I didn't expect it. I didn't expect Hulk Hogan. I think it was so crazy because everyone was like, whoa, Hulk Hogan, boo. Like that was the immediate like reaction out of people. So I thought it was very interesting. It also doesn't help that we just revisited a lot of the Hulk Hogan stuff with Mr. McMahon. Like that stuff is on fresh off the top of a lot of WWE fans' minds. It just made a ton of sense to me. But I was glad it happened because part of me is like, sometimes it takes that for people to go introspective. Like, dang, I was really getting booed like that. And I'm like, yeah, bro, like you're out here, like you said, just trying to promote waving your flag, Hulkamania, but nobody's having it. So I kind of like people being honest about how they felt about, of course, he's a legend. He's done what he's done, but he's not a great human being. And I think that the boos reflected that, and I think he deserved it.
Hey, they got him the fuck up out of there immediately. Yep. And listen, Hulk Hogan, like, dude, this is the culmination of so many things. Like, I don't think it's attributed to one thing by any stretch. As you said, the revelations in the Mr. McMahon documentary are very recent, finding out, oh, yeah, you did snitch on Jesse Ventura about the whole union situation, compounded by the fact of the egregious racist shit that he said all those years ago, compounded by the fact that he has been actively campaigning and supporting Donald Trump all the way through his election. Not that there's technically not that there's anything wrong with that, but listen, we're in Los Angeles, California. a liberal ass town in a blue state. Like, of course that was going to happen. And then you add all the other shit on top of it, all the other information
Yeah.
that we have. The man's a known liar. He's a known exaggerator. He's told all sorts of bullshit stories that have been disproven. He's become like a meme so much on the internet in the past 5 years. Like any any reference to somebody with ego, they bring out a Hulk Hogan meme or a video. Anybody that references somebody that's over exaggerating or lying about a story, they bring out a
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan meme. Like he's just known to just not be a genuine, authentic person. Nobody knows who Terry Bollea is because he's never been that. He's only been this character that's been blown way out of proportion. And the character, as of late, in the past 10 years or so, has been doing a lot of terrible shit, you know, to a lot of people's eyes, whether it's the racist comments or whether it's just actively participating and campaigning for Trump. And again, like, you don't see them booing Undertaker for that. He obviously supports Trump. He brought him on his podcast. But the way he does it is very different than what Hulk Hogan is doing. Hulk Hogan showing up at the RNC, you know, using his wrestling stick and integrating that with the Trump campaign. That's also like a weird thing. Like whenever Undertaker's doing it, he's just him. He's not doing Undertaker wrestling gimmicky stuff. He's just doing, I'm Mark Calloway. This is how I feel. Boom. That is what it is. I can at least respect that. But Hulk Hogan bringing wrestling into it, doing the whole shirt shit. I mean, he showed up in LA with the fucking MAGA Powers shirt on, a play on the Mega Powers from the 80s. And I think everybody saw that and was like, oh, you think you're about to walk in here and it's going to be sweet? Bet, we got some energy for you. We going to show you. So I'm glad it happened. And, I think it's actually likely. I wouldn't have said this before the night, but I think it's likely we might not ever see him on WWE TV again. I don't know, even if as a company, and there's a healthy amount of Trump supporters even within the company, like that are known to be out there. Triple H himself, like we know he supports that guy, but I don't know if they would put him in that position again because it was ugly. It was really, really ugly. So I don't know. Do you think it might be the last time that we might see him on WWE TV ever? Which is it's almost an unbelievable thing to think about because he is such a legend and he is so important to the business. But do you think that this reaction was just so visceral that it might give them pause or hesitation to want to consider doing something like that again?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that was bad. That was really bad. And I think you don't want to continue to bring somebody back like that that's going to bring bad business, right? You don't want to be like, they brought back Hulk Hogan again. He knows we don't like him. He knows we know all of these problematic things about Hulk Hogan. They decide to bring him back again. Does the company like this person that we don't like? Am I supposed to support the company? You know what I mean? It's just small things like that I think the company doesn't want to. They don't want to have to deal with, man. And it's easy for Hulk Hogan not to show up again. I think he's old. He doesn't have to keep coming around and be here. I think you might be right. It very well may be the last time we see Hulk Hogan on WWE television. Well, of course, we might see him in other things. Somebody else's podcast, some new TV show he might have again. Who knows what Hulk Hogan is going to do? Shoot, you was just talking about he was promoting his beer company, whatever the fuck it is. But I don't think we'll see him again, and I think a lot of people won't care if we don't see him again either. And I think that's also just as important.
If that's the case, what a send-off. Pretty epic.
What a send-off. You reap what you sow, brother.
Oh, 100%, brother. Anything you want to say about the matches? We did get 4 matches. We got the Tribal Combat match, Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship. Drew McIntyre and Jey Uso also had a match, and then the main event, CM Punk, Seth Rollins. Obviously hugely anticipated. Anything you want to say about the actual competitive matches that took place on the broadcast?
Not too much, man. Everybody cooked. CM Punk and Seth whooped each other's ass. I was so happy to see that. It's like one of those matches that it's one of those ones that was bubbling in a lot of people's, I think, hearts and heads for a long time while CM Punk wasn't part of the WWE. So to see him bring it here and for it to finally come to fruition was really dope. I think for a lot of people, me included. Roman and Solo, I love all the messiness that goes down with anything Bloodline. I thought that was a fun time in a good match. Liv and Rhea, wow. Just wow, they squashed the hell out of that. They were like, well, that's the end of that story. Like there was no fixings. Rhea got her belt back, and that was the end of that. I was like, okay, cool. Let's move on to something new. But I like that storyline for what it was. It was a good time. I'm sure they'll have a falling out of what that thing is, and then Drew and Jay. I just like talking about Travis Scott and the way he came out with Jay. It was just so insane. Like I can't. it was like one of the craziest things I seen in the night because Jay is like Jay is so over, and right next to him, you got this dude just coming down the steps with him, smoking a blunt in front of everybody. I'm like, Jay just brought out his son like 2 weeks ago, coming down these same steps, and now you're bringing out Travis Scott with a blunt in his hand. I don't know. It's just so funny, man. But if anything, like talked about what the Netflix era is going to be, to me, it was what Travis Scott's energy was in that entrance, man. But I liked every match. I didn't have any complaints in that regard, man. I think it was a pretty good card.
Welcome to the Netflix era for sure. Yeah, I don't really have much to say. The matches were mostly fine. I think my favorite probably was Tribal Combat. It's convoluted as fuck, but that's what Bloodline matches are. Like that's just like a part of their DNA, and it was fine. And CM Punk and Seth Rollins was also really good too. Also, just quickly want to shout out, a few of the millennial celebrities that they brought out. They had fucking Danielle Fishel, Topanga in the crowd, and Will Friedle. That was amazing. And the pop of the night, Macaulay Culkin. Amazing.
That pop was crazy.
He had an incredible pop, like one of the loudest reactions of the night. He was ready for the moment, like everything, the reveal, the gesture, the look on his face, like it was perfect. It was literally, I'm the Homelander meme. It was perfect. Couldn't have done it better. So I was just glad to see him, out there, outside. Yeah. And Kieran was there too. They didn't pan to him, but
he was. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and had a whole moment with CM Punk. CM Punk. I think this was off camera, but CM Punk walked up to him and greeted him because he was ringside, and he was like, "Did you just like win an award or something?" He was like, "Yeah, Golden Globe. This is how I celebrate coming to wrestling." So it was a really cool moment to see all of it. So can't wait to see everything that shakes up and shakes out with the Royal Rumble and the rest of Raw on Netflix. But we will have to see over the next few weeks. But those are all of our thoughts on the Raw premiere on Netflix. If you checked it out, hit us up and let us know what you think.